Okay, let's unpack this. Imagine stepping off a busy modern street in Edinburgh,
Right?
and you descend basically into this buried city,
Right.
frozen in time.
Yeah.
We're talking about this maze of ancient alleyways where the air just feels heavy, heavy with history, and, well, a lot of people say something else too.
Definitely.
This isn't just some old house. It's like an entire chunk of the old city hidden away for centuries. Mary King's Close.
That's the place.
We've got a really fascinating stack of sources here, pulling back the curtain on this pretty eerie subterranean world.
Mm-hmm.
So our mission for this deep dive really is to take everything we've gathered, the history, the legends, those chilling ghost stories, and the attempts to explain it all and, put together a clear picture.
Makes sense.
When we get beyond just the spooky stuff, understand the actual place, how it ended up buried, the impact of things like the plague, urban development.
And why it still grabs people's imaginations, right? Both historically and maybe supernaturally.
Exactly. It's about the human tragedy, the architecture, this unique preservation, and how the past seems so present there.
So to really get it, you've got to picture Edinburgh back in the 17th century, the old town.
Right.
It was incredibly crowded, like seriously packed. A vertical city almost, people living stacked up in these tenements.
And off the main street, the Royal Mile, you had these narrow alleys. Closes.
Benghazi closes. And Mary King's Close was a major one, apparently quite vibrant.
But also cramped, I imagine.
Yeah.
And the sources mention sanitation, or lack thereof.
Oh, definitely. Cramped, unsanitary by our standards. It was named after Mary King, a merchant burgess, a businesswoman, basically, who lived and worked there. Shows it was a place of commerce.
Okay, so bustling but tough conditions.
Yeah.
And then the plague arrives.
Then the Black Death hits in 1645, and the sources say it was absolutely devastating.
To wipe people out.
Yeah. Estimates suggest maybe half the city's population died. You have to imagine the sheer terror and suffering in those narrow closes. Nowhere to run, really.
And this is where that really horrifying legend comes from, isn't it? The one about the city officials.
Ah, yes. The story that they panicked and just walled up the infected residents inside the close, left them to die.
Brutal.
It's an incredibly powerful, chilling story, and it's definitely shaped the close's reputation for centuries.
What? It's just a legend.
Well, this is one of the really key things our sources highlight. Historians largely dispute that idea. The whole bricked up alive scenario doesn't seem to hold up to historical scrutiny.
Wow, okay. That's huge because that image is so strong. So what do the records actually show? Why don't historians buy the walled-up story?
The records paint a more complicated picture. Still grim, obviously. There was immense suffering and panic. But they suggest aid was given to the sick. People weren't just completely abandoned and sealed in like that.
So people could leave. There was some support.
It seems so. The close was gradually abandoned over time, especially as the plague raged, and later as wealthier folk moved out. But not deliberately sealed with people trapped inside en masse.
Okay, so the people weren't intentionally entombed, but the place itself, it did get buried, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's the crucial part, maybe even more interesting, historically speaking. It wasn't about the plague, it was about urban development much later.
How did that happen?
So fast forward to the mid-18th century, around 1753, Edinburgh's expanding, modernizing. They decide to build a big, new civic building, the Royal Exchange, right on top of that area.
Right over Mary King's Close.
Exactly. So what they did was they basically used the existing closes, including Mary King's, as foundations. They knocked down the upper floors, filled in some spaces.
And just built the new structure on top.
Pretty much, they literally built a new layer of the city over the old one.
So it wasn't malice during the plague, it was just construction convenience.
Exactly. Architectural expediency. But the result was incredible because they didn't totally obliterate the lower levels.
We were just sealed off underneath.
Sealed off and preserved. Homes, workshops, streets, even some belongings left behind. It became this accidental time capsule, a snapshot of 17th century life, just frozen in the dark beneath the new city. Chilling, really.
And it stayed like that for a long time. Hidden away.
For a very long time, yes. Largely forgotten, inaccessible. And, that's when the myths and legends really took hold. Not just plague stories, but tales of murders, other dark happenings.
Fueled by the darkness and the unknown.
Right. Though parts were apparently occupied much later, the sources mention the last resident, Andrew Chesney, leaving only in 1902. But the main older sections were sealed off, letting those stories fester.
And now, of course, parts are open again. And it's famous for, well, for being haunted.
Intensely haunted, according to many. And that reputation isn't actually new. One source suggests people were reporting strange things there as far back as the 17th century.
Wow, even back then.
Seems so. But since it reopened as a tourist attraction, yeah, the reports have exploded. Visitors, staff, paranormal investigators, lots of claims.
You can see why. The descriptions paint a picture. Dark, damp, cold, really claustrophobic down there.
Oh, the environment itself is definitely a factor. It's inherently spooky, isn't it? Those conditions alone can put you on edge, heighten your senses.
Make you jump at shadows.
Exactly. But proponents point to the sheer volume and consistency of the reports. It's more than just feeling creeped out, they argue.
So what kind of specific things do people report experiencing? What do the sources say?
Well, beyond the classic cold spots or feeling suddenly dizzy, there are lots of accounts of sounds, disembodied sounds.
Like what? Footsteps?
Footsteps in empty rooms, yeah. But also whispers, coughing, sneezing, even crying. Sounds tied to illness and sadness, you know.
Yeah.
Then there's poltergeist-type stuff reported, objects moving slightly, lights flickering when they shouldn't, doors creaking open or shut.
Okay, that's unsettling.
And people claim to see things, shadowy figures darting in the periphery, or feeling touched, like a tug on your sleeve or a cold hand brushing past.
And isn't there one really famous story about a little girl?
Ah, yes, Little Annie. That's probably the most well-known alleged spirit there.
What's her story?
The tale is she was a young girl left behind or abandoned during the plague and died there alone. There's a specific room associated with her.
And people leave things for her.
They do. Visitors often leave toys, dolls, little gifts in that room. It's become a tradition, and people report really specific things happening right there.
Like what?
Intense cold spots, feeling a small hand touch theirs, hearing faint whispers or sighs. It seems to be a real focal point for reported activity.
The sources mention other spots too, right? Like a curio shop area.
Yes, that's another area often cited as having particularly strong energy, or whatever you want to call it, intense feelings.
And it's not just tourists getting spooked.
That's a key point in the reports. Apparently, staff members, people who are there day in, day out, have had experiences so unsettling that some have actually quit their jobs. And even self-proclaimed skeptics, people who go in expecting nothing, sometimes report feeling deeply unnerved or witnessing things they just can't easily explain away.
So the argument is, what? That the place itself holds on to something.
Kind of. The idea is that because it was preserved so uniquely, almost like trapping the past, maybe the intense emotions, the suffering, the sheer human tragedy that happened there, maybe that energy is somehow imprinted on the place. Residual energy, some call it. Exceptionally strong because of the circumstances.
Okay, so we have all these really compelling kind of chilling accounts. But the sources also bring up the rational explanations, the skeptical viewpoint.
Absolutely. And it's crucial to look at those. We already mentioned the environment itself. Cold, damp, dark, confined spaces that's natural going to make people feel uneasy, maybe even a bit anxious.
Your mind plays tricks on you.
Yeah. And your brain tries to make sense of ambiguous stimuli.
What about the sounds? You mentioned footsteps, whispers.
Well, think about the acoustics down there. Narrow, stone-walled passages. Sound is going to echo strangely. It might be hard to tell where a noise is coming from. A drip of water could sound like a footstep in the distance. Your own breath might echo back as a whisper.
Right, makes sense. And then there's the power of suggestion.
Huge factor. Psychological priming and confirmation bias. You go into a place famous for being haunted, you've heard the stories about plague and death.
You're kind of expecting something to happen.
Exactly. So any little creak, any draft, any shadow, you're more likely to interpret it as something paranormal because that's what you're primed to find. You notice the things that fit the story.
There's that one really interesting historical theory, too, about the early hauntings back in the 17th century. Something about biogas.
Oh, yeah, that's fascinating. It connects directly to the historical setting. Nearby was the Norloch, which was basically an open sewer back then. Hugely polluted.
Pleasant.
Not at all. So some researchers theorize that methane or other gases, biogas escaping from all that decaying stuff in the loch, could have seeped into the low-lying closes like Mary King's.
And that could cause, what, weird likes?
Possibly weird lights like will-o'-the-wisps, maybe even mild hallucinations or feelings of unease if the gas concentration was right. So it's possible that some of the very first rumors of the close being haunted, way back then, might have had a basis in the actual physical polluted environment.
That really underlines the whole thing, doesn't it? This constant mix of Harsh historical reality, the overcrowding, the disease, the fear, and then these powerful legends like the walled-up story.
Mhm.
Even if that bit's not strictly accurate, it's become part of the close's identity.
It absolutely shapes the narrative, and it forces you to think about what people might actually be experiencing, if anything. Are these ghosts, as people call them, actual conscious spirits, the souls of those who died there?
Or something else.
Or something else, maybe it's more like echoes, residual energy, like a recording of intense emotion, tragedy, suffering, imprinted on the location itself. The sheer scale of death and despair during the plague years there is hard to fathom. Could that leave a mark?
It seems like the real power of Mary King's Close is how it connects you, like physically connects you to that traumatic past.
Right. It makes history feel immediate, tangible. You're not just reading about the 17th century or the plague. You're standing in this space where people lived and died through it.
Whether you believe in ghosts or not, that connection is powerful.
Incredibly powerful. That direct link to the past, layered with centuries of stories, legends, and reported experiences, it creates this unique, profound atmosphere. It really makes you think about urban history, disease, how the past stays with us.
So Mary King's Close really is this amazing, kind of disturbing testament to Edinburgh's history. A layer of the city buried, literally built over.
But refuses to be forgotten, refuses to be silent.
It leaves you grappling with the brutal facts of history, but also with these persistent mysteries, the reported phenomena, the power of belief.
Yeah, that central question just hangs in the air down there.
Are these lingering souls trying to be heard? Or is it all echoes of suffering, amplified by the darkness and our own expectations?
The close hold on to its secrets, that's for sure. Whispering them maybe in the cold and the quiet.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What does it mean for a place to hold on to the past so tightly? Does our collective belief in a place's story, the sheer weight of human experience there, actually shape how we perceive it? Does it somehow make it haunted in our minds? That's something to chew on long after you're back up on the bright, busy street.